Hello and welcome. In this video I will be explaining how the CSS Margin Property works. The CSS Margin Properties are used to create space around elements. Each margin has 4 sides, and you can use the CSS Margin Property to set the margin area of all 4 sides of an element. The 4 sides of the margin properties are margin top, margin right, margin bottom, and then the margin left. When you use margins, you can specify the values for the margins. Margins can be specified using 1, 2, 3, or 4 values. The values can be applied to the margins based on the number of values specified. So let's take a look at how the values are applied based on the specified values. So this is a table. Say if you have just one value specified, that value is applied to all the 4 sides of the margin. If you have 2 values specified, the first margin applies to the top and the bottom. The second applies to the left and the right. When there are 3 values specified, the first margin applies to the top, the second goes to the left and the right, and the third goes to the bottom. When you have 4 values specified, the margins apply to the top, the right, the bottom, and the left in that order. So it's in a clockwise order. The way I tend to remember this is by using the word trouble. So if you type in the word trouble, take out the vowels, you'll be left with TRBL. So when you have 4 values specified, you need to apply it in that order: top, right, bottom, left. All margin properties have several values. So the margin property can have a length value, percentage, inherit, and also the keyword auto. The length basically specifies a margin in pixel, point, centimeter value, and so on, depending on whatever unit of measurement you are using. But it basically specifies a margin in whatever measurement you are using, which basically refers to the size of the margin as a fixed value. Then we have the percentage. This is the size of the margin as a percentage relative to the width of the containing block or parent element. So the percentage specifies a margin in percentage of the width of the containing element. Then we have the inherit, which specifies that the margin should be inherited from the parent element. We also have the keyword auto. Auto, basically, this is when the browser calculates the margin. The browser will select a suitable margin to use. In certain cases, the browser can set a value that will center an element. Each value can be positive, a 0, or a negative. So now that we've learned a little bit about the CSS margin property, let's try and set margin for some HTML element. So if I look at my HTML here, I'm going to set a margin for my body element here. So I'll go into my CSS and I just come here and type in body. I'll do my curly braces and I'll separate it, and I'm going to give the margin property. I'm going to make it, give it two values. First one is going to be a 0 and the second one is going to be auto. That means I'm leaving the second value for the browser to set. We've already gone through how to apply the values. So if I do a save on here and just refresh my browser, you can see the body has been resized. So the margin, the first value is 0 and the rest is auto. That means the browser will reset it. So you can set the margin property for as many HTML elements as possible. For example, I could set a margin for this image if I also wanted to do that. Next, let's quickly go through the CSS padding property. It's really similar to the CSS margin property. The only difference is that CSS padding property does not allow negative value. Apart from that, everything else is different. Also, they don't use auto keyword. So let me just run through the properties of the CSS padding, which is really similar to that of the CSS margin property. So here for the padding, the properties are used to generate space around the content of an element. So if you think of the space inside an element, that is known as the padding. The space outside the element is known as the margin. Each padding has 4 sides, just like the margin. So we have the padding to the top, padding to the right, padding to the bottom, and padding to the left. Just like the margin property, padding can also be specified using 1, 2, 3, or 4 values because they have 4 sides. So the application is the same way as that for the margin. So if you've got just the 1 value specified, it applies to all 4 sides. If you've got 2, it applies to the top, the bottom, and then the second applies to the left and the right. If you've got 3 values, the first padding goes to the top, second goes to the left and right, the third goes to the bottom. If you've got 4 values specified, the padding is applied in the order of top, right, bottom, and left, which is a clockwise direction. All the padding properties have the following values. So if you've got the length, which specifies a padding in pixels, points, centimeters, or whatever measurement you're using. And we also have the percentage, which refers to a padding in percentage, which is relative to the width of the containing element. We also have the inherit, which specifies that the padding should be inherited from the parent element. The key distinction between the padding property and the margin is that with the padding, negative values are not allowed. So I'm going to add some padding properties here to my CSS. And I'm going to add it in the body area as well, to the body element. So I'm just going to tap down and type in padding as a property. Okay, and I'm going to give it 4 values. So when I'm giving it the 4 values, it will be applied in the order of top, right, bottom, left. The way I tend to remember this is by the word trouble, but if you take out the vowels from the word trouble, you're left with T, R, B, L. So that's how I remember it. So I'm going to give this 4 values. First one will be a 0. The unit of measurement is going to be pixels. Second value is going to be 20 pixels. Third will be 20 pixels as well. And the fourth value will be 20 pixels. You can see that if I expand this page, you can see that the values, the padding is already taking effect. All right, so it's being applied. You may not see that distinctively, but it is applied. You can see the space. Padding refers to the space inside the content of an element. All right, so we've used 4 values here to apply padding to the body element. So the body is basically the content that is visible. So that is it for this video. In this video, I explained how the CSS margin and padding property works. They work in identical fashion. The only key distinction is that the padding property does not allow negative values, and also it does not use the auto keyword. So these are the 2 distinct differences between the padding and the margin property. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.